Good evening. This is Dr. Timothy Emmerich with Harvest Evangelistic Association, inviting you once again to study a very important topic that we have for this evening. We're going to be dealing in the realm of forensic victimology, okay? So this is a topic of much concern, a topic that I have been involved with in prior law enforcement experience, and a topic that is very important to the relationship between offenders and their victims, okay? So if you could just sit back and take some time to learn this topic with me, and possibly it's going to serve yourself, loved ones, other people that you know that could become potential victims, and we'll discover how and why, and at the same time, how we can protect ourselves from different situations. I want us to understand that in studying forensic victimology and the relationship between the victim and the offender is in no sense placing blame on the victim. However, there are times, due to lifestyle and the lack of common sense, that people become victims, okay? So we're going to study this about a little bit. So in the realm of criminal justice, the word victim describes any person who has experienced injury, loss, hardship due to illegal actions of another individual or organization. For all intents and purposes, victimology refers to the scientific study of victimization, including relationship between victims and offenders, and the influence that social media plays and even social movements. The problem is that violence does not have a standard or fixed definition per se. Definitions of violence are different between different countries, cultures, times, and contexts. Okay, that's very important to understand that. That what is considered maybe a crime here, let's take for instance domestic violence, it may not necessarily be a crime that is, enforced, the penalties enforced for that type of crime in other different countries. You'll see a lot of countries which are patriarchal in society, third world countries, and it's okay for the husband to beat the wives, beat the children, and so in those type of countries as well, I'm not saying that that's the only place it's taking place, but in those countries as well, we must understand that it's much easier that the offenders have access to their victims. Okay. We're only going to touch on this briefly. This is a wide, extensive topic. We're going to focus on describing aspects of the lives and lifestyles of victims to gain better understanding of how they become victims, what took place, and the relationship to the offender. We're not going to assign blame, as I said, but again, common sense opens the door for a lot of people to avoid being victims. I want to also help us understand the impact of collective trauma on people's lives and how that builds different psychosocial construction of their reality and life experiences from ours. Okay. My teaching, of course, is based on professional experience and academic preparation, and I've used many resources for this teaching, and you will find this information on our website, harvestevangelisticassociation.com, under current events. Okay, so what I want to be able to first start and talk about is the influence of mental disorders and substance abuse. There are many reasons for aggression that relate to a person's mind or body or predisposition towards violence. I have labeled these people as psychopath or even sociopaths, but those who have a different psychosocial construction of reality. In other words, they were brought up in very violent homes, where they saw a lot of abuse as a child. Maybe they even went through abuse as a child, and therefore, in some cases, not all cases, they carry that violence forward. I know that 70% of out of one, let's put it this way, out of 100% of children who have been abused, 70% will remain victims and 30% become predators, okay, because of, again, the things they've gone through. There are a variety of mental disorders that affects a person's behavior. Schizophrenia, homicidal, and paranoid delusional are also considered more likely associated with violence or other form of illnesses. Psychopathic disorders is a persistent, ongoing disability of the mind. The psychopathic checklist is the following: lack of empathy, callousness, a crucial lack of remorse or guilt are key predators for psychopathic behavior. Furthermore, it includes indicators such as superficial charm, grandioso, sense of self-worth, prone to boredom, pathological, liars, lack realistic, and long-term impulsivity. Okay, so there's a teaching that we have. It's called Psychopaths Among Us, and I would like you to look at that one, and also Intended Evil on the YouTube channel that talks about the difference between sociopathic and psychopathic behavior. Ongoing research has brought awareness to post-traumatic stress disorder and the range of symptoms, including the lack of concentration and memory, constant alert, awareness to danger in extreme cases. Some might be a precursor for violent behavior. And of course, all of these above-mentioned symptoms may be exacerbated when it's involved self-medication, drugs, or alcohol. Both affect behavior and constraints, and data shows that those prone to violence were either on drugs or drinking. Period. 2/3 of offenders, when they killed, were intoxicated by either drugs or alcohol. Okay. So again, this is a very important topic. And as we go on, and if you have questions, we have a site on the web channel where you can submit a question and we'll be more than happy to answer it. Okay, so some of the sociological theories I'd like to talk about are poverty, strain, and crime. Sociological theories are also indicators for some propensity towards violence. Sutherland stated that behavior is learned in interaction with others, mainly in small, intimate groups. So what that means is the offenders and their caretakers and socialization with the caretaker could be grandparents, could be relatives, parents, foster parents. If there's violent acts taking place, well, this is where they're going to learn a lot of violent behavior. Many people encounter individuals that think laws should be obeyed, but there are many people that believe that they need to circumvent laws and disobey them and get away with all they can. The differential association theory is based on two factors. Okay, again, this is Sutherland who wrote this one. He said, number one is that learning takes place in small, intimate, personal groups, like I indicated, and they're committed to personal experiences as well as definitions of future events. What that means is what you've learned is probably how you're going to act out in the future given certain stressors and situations. Another theorist named Bandura indicated that the use of physical violence against children is not necessarily based on learning theories. He said some people who inflict such violence have often been victims themselves. This basically is attributed to the lack of failure of socialization in their lives. Okay, so what they're saying is if children are beaten all the time, well, they learn that this is the only way that behavior or misbehavior should be handled, and of course this is not true. Delinquent and aggressive children has shown that their behavior can be linked by a use of violence by their parents, both on one another and their children. Furthermore, the visual portrayal of violence has a significant effect on younger viewers. This is where social media comes in, TV, etc. There's a lot of research out there that show that children who are exposed either through TV, social media, all these different influencers show a marked increase in demonstrating violence and aggression. And their viewing habits and the amount of time they're involved in viewing these type of graphic and violent videos, even cartoons and things like that, can not necessarily instigate violent behavior, but when triggers within the child has been hit by some outside stimuli, maybe a lack of patience, they didn't get their way, or whatever, that can trigger violence, and the violence that they've seen is the violence they're going to, do to others. And so, child's play and a lot of these different things are very important because they're linked to a lot of violent movies and media that they've seen. The psychological aspects of victimology, there's a variety of psychological aspects to the response of victims to violent crime. Again, it's very hard to come up with a solid definition because people respond differently to victims. Some people fight, some people flee, some people just freeze, and they don't know what to do, and so they become victims once and again. So there appears to be three stages that victims go through. The first stage is the impact stage, then the recoil stage, and finally the reorganization stage of the initial response to the assault. The intensity and length of the assault and the level of physical injury and or perceived threat to life will paralyze some people, even with minor situations taking place. Recoil stage is when victims attempt to deal with the effect of the crime on themselves and their lives. Emotions will vary from sadness, anger, self-pity, fear, and even guilt. And in this stage, where denial sets in, even detachment sometimes is evident. In other words, they can develop multiple personalities. Okay, and the third stage and final stage involve reorganization. This emotional intensity of recoil stage is expected to lessen the victim and has more energized to deal with daily activities. In other words, the trauma of the event wears off. I mean, it's still in their psyche, but the impact of the event wears off and they can continue on with some normalcy in their lives. And so in these women, these syndromes that affect women and most victims of women of domestic violence or rape and things like that, and the violent act, we need to understand that sexual aggression, rape, is not necessarily a sexual, symptom or the way it's played out. It's an act of control and domination. So when a woman is raped, it has not much to do with sex, but domination and control. And I've been into a lot of situations where I've dealt with a lot of different, both victims and offenders. And I can tell you that a lot of offenders, and I had this in my prior case study on the young man that we talked about, that was a victim of ongoing sexual abuse by his mother, and her mother was a prostitute, would bring women home to abuse him, and because of that, he hated any woman that looked like his mother and took out all his aggression on women. He had, I don't know, maybe 6, 7 different arrests in his record regarding domestic violence. And as I was working with him, I had him list the physical and sociological appearance of the women that he was beating on, that he hooked up with, as well as his mother. And lo and behold, these women looked like his mother. So basically, he was beating his mother. And because of that, this psychosocial construction of his reality was that all women were out to do him harm, and he was going to harm them before they could harm him. Okay, so it's very important to understand that this is a topic that's not easily understood. And the reason I took this into consideration is because a lot of people who become victims, some of them is because of lifestyle. Let me talk about that. Like I always tell people, when you're driving, have your doors locked. And you're in traffic, don't get right on bumper someone. If someone is trying to carjack you, if you have your car right on top of someone, you can't get away. But if you have your car back away from the car in front of you, then there's probably some way that you could get away. Keep your windows rolled up. Don't have the music loud so you can't be aware of what's going on around you. A lot of younger people drive with earphones or earplugs and things like that, and they have music blasting and they have no idea what is going around them, and so it's very easy for them to become victims. Also, when we examine victimology and the access that the offender had to its victim, it's very important that because we can help people realize that they should not do certain things. Like, for instance, some of my teachings I've taught in different situations with law enforcement officers of a lesson that I gave them called garbage detail. And what they would do is they would go out in the wee hours of the morning to an area that might be around their house or another block, take the garbage out of the trash can that's on the street, take it home, put it out, and put everything that's in there, a list of everything that's in there, and its situation, dates, times, and you'll be really surprised of how many people throw away medications that show that they have either heart trouble or asthma, things like that. Also where they have, telephone numbers and where they go and where they buy their food and the where they go for the cleaners and the bank and things like that. And psychopaths will go through garbage cans and look for all this type of information and strike at the time that they feel that the victim is most vulnerable and they are most in control. And a lot of them is an initial strike. And then they'll take the victim to the secondary crime scene, and the violence or whatever is going to take place will be much more controlled by the perpetrator, and they won't be found out because the initial assault took place. It's like, for instance, you drive in a supermarket and there's a van right next to you. The woman or man or young boy or young girl gets out of the car, the door of the van slides open, they pull the person in, cover their face, shut the door of the van, and then take them to a secondary crime scene. So you see people walking in and out of stores with headphones on or looking at their phone, and what they're saying is, hit me in the head because I'm not going to know who you are. I'm not looking up, I'm not looking around, and I'm an easy target. And I always tell, when I had students, get off your phone, look around you. When you're going to a store, put your phone in your pocket. Put your keys in your hand. Learn how to protect yourselves. Don't become an easy target. Perpetrators are looking for easy targets, someone who's not going to fight back. Okay? And, I always tell anybody, if someone grabs you or whatever, you fight and make sure that you're going to do everything you can so you're not taken to a secondary crime scene. So it's very important for us to be aware. Take self-defense classes. Learn how to strike certain positions that you should strike, the nose, the throat, areas like that. Carry heavy keys where you could use them as a weapon against a potential attacker. In some states, you can even use pepper spray. And remember, if you use pepper spray and you spray someone that's attacking you, you should call right away law enforcement, give the description of the person that attacked you, what took place, etc., because the first one who calls is considered the victim. if you pepper spray someone and this person, calls first before you and says, this some crazy person attacked me with pepper spray and this was their car or this was what they looked like, etc., well, then you're considered the suspect. So the first person who calls is considered the victim who's reporting the crime, and that's what you need to do in any situation. You need to report the crime. So when we talk about lifetime exposure, the way we live, lifestyle exposure, it's very important to understand that, sometimes people do very, very silly things. Like, for instance, they're going to go out at 11 o'clock at night and walk their dog. And it might be a little tiny dog, and they're walking their dog, and they're not paying attention. They got music on, they're looking around, and they're more interested in their dog if it's going to go to, the bathroom or whatever, but they're not paying attention to the surroundings. And you are a target, because there are people out there looking for easy prey. I tell people, don't go to the market at 11 o'clock at night. Don't go to the ATM at night. Even if you go during the day, make sure it's a busy time during the day. If you're going to the ATM, try to go to the ATM on the inside of the bank. Don't go on the outside of the bank. Always look around. Okay? So it's very important for us to understand that there's certain things you can do not to become a victim. And 20% of all cases reported to the police, are cases that probably could have been avoided if they had used a little bit more common sense in their lifestyle. Okay, I know a lot of people are going to take they're not going to like what I'm going to say, should I say, and that I don't drink, I don't go to bars, I don't smoke. I don't believe that first of all, physiologically, very good behavior. I'm 74 years old. I don't have any type of diseases, high cholesterol, blood pressure, things like that. We eat well. My wife and I work out and things like that. When we go out, we're always alert. Always alert. In the car, the doors are locked. We go to the market, we're looking at people. We go inside, we're looking at people. We know where the exits are because if anything takes place, a lot of people run to the front door. That's usually where the perpetrators are, and that's when they find trouble. So you find another way out to the back end where you can get out safely. So a lot of situations that are taking place, people put themselves into it. Okay, my wife and I counsel a lot of people, men and women, and I like my wife to counsel mostly the women. And many times, she's been told by different women that, they went to a bar and got really intoxicated, and they were subsequently raped or abducted, or something has taken place. Well, if they wouldn't have been in a bar drinking, okay, and becoming so heavily intoxicated, they would have been aware of their situations, and when my sons were in their early adulthood, the killing hours between 1 and 3 in the morning, I would tell them, if you're living in my house under my roof, I want you home before 1 o'clock. Because the killing hours, most people that are going to be killed, it's between 1 and 3 in the morning. So if you're out at between 1 and 3 in the morning doing whatever you're doing, there's a greater propensity that you're going to run into problems, and very serious problems. So there's a lot of things that victims can do to lessen their chance of becoming a victim, because there are offenders out there. Like I said, look at that video that I have. It's called Psychopaths Among Us, and Intended Evil is the other one, and how these people go about looking for easy targets, for victims, okay? So it's very important that a lot of people that are involved in excessive drinking, binge drinking, going to bars, being involved, even young men going to bars and getting in fights and can get stabbed, get shot, different things like that. Well, I know people, that's what they're going to want to do, and it's unfortunate, but you're setting yourself up into situations that are going through some very difficult times, and you might become a victim. And even though you don't want to be a victim, but putting yourself in those type of situations make yourself more vulnerable than other situations. Lifetime lifestyle exposure refers to a frequency of exposure of the victim in different categories indicated. Lifestyle factors can influence overall possibility of individuals' harm in three ways. One, by increasing the victim's proximity to and interactions with the offender and those who are predisposed to criminality. Creating conditions of conflict with the offender by enhancing the offender's perception of the victim's vulnerability. Okay, like I said, men or women going into a bar and they're getting real drunk, they can't defend themselves, they don't know where they are. You're a victim. You're a victim. You're a victim. And I don't go to bars. I don't think that people should be involved in that type of atmosphere. That's a moral decision on my part. Everybody has their own thing, but realize where you go and what you do and how you do it can set you up to become a victim. And you need to be aware of those things. There are victims' lifestyles which facilitate victimization through routine activities. I tell people that when you're out and driving, always look in your mirrors, look your side mirrors, look your rear mirror. And if you feel that someone is following you, make 3 left turns and find a police station and park there. Or call 911 and tell them that you're being followed and where you're at. Many times when my wife and I were first married, we'd stop. I'd say, "Where are we?" And I'd say it loud. And she'd get scared. She'd say, what do you mean, where are we? We're in a car. I said, no, where are you? If you had to call 911 right now, where are you? What's your corner? North, south, what's the name of the streets? What's going on? Where are you? See, a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people leave their doors open at night. It gets hot, they leave a window open at night. And a lot of serial killers and rapists go through windows, go through open doors. And, of course, every night we secure all windows, all doors. Our little dog is a great alarm. We have an alarm system. A lot of people don't have alarm systems. A lot of people don't protect themselves. They might have a baseball bat. Well, the perpetrator might have a gun. And so to show up to a gunfight with a baseball bat, guess who loses? Okay? So there's a lot of things you need to do to protect yourself. And you need to think about those things. And that's why, again, when we look at the topic is forensic victimology, understanding crime, understanding lifetime routines of victims and what makes them accessible as victims and targets, and how perpetrators, offenders, will look for easy targets. And if you're putting yourself in that type of situation, it's not going to end well. So that's what you need to understand. I want to talk about also false allegations of crime. Now, I worked child abuse for approximately 15 years. I worked gangs before, and I worked narcotics and things like that. And but when I worked child abuse, I found that I would say at least 30% of all child abuse cases were false. Okay. Usually in custody disputes. One parent is using allegations of false child abuse against another parent, and the kids are caught in the middle. The kids are prepped, and then you have either social workers or even officers that don't know how to do forensic interviewing and putting ideas in people's heads and in children's heads. They're traumatized by being woken up and spoken to about those type of things, or by a person in uniform, and they don't know they don't know lifespan development theory, they don't know how to relate to children, and so children are often prompted and pushed into making allegations that they would never have made if it wasn't for someone. False reports are very real. And I took that situation, every situation I went into, very real. Many people that we have counseled, people in prison, have been, some of them have been victims of false allegations. And, when that takes place, your whole world turns upside down. I remember one time I responded to a high school, and there was a young girl. She must have been about 16 years old, and she went to the nurse, and she wanted to have to see if she was pregnant. She came out pregnant, and then she said it was her father. Now, when I interviewed the father was a gentleman from Central America. He was undocumented, but he had his house. His wife was documented, so they bought a little house. He had his little landscaping business. She worked in a convalescent home, cleaning and changing sheets and things like that. And with, tears, he said, "I would never do that to my daughter." But what I found kind of interesting is when I started to interview her, and CPS showed up, what have you, she said, "I want to be placed with my uncle." Well, we started talking to her. "Who's your uncle?" "He's a paternal uncle." She's 16. He was 22. Is he married? "No." "Does he have any children?" "No." Where does he live?" "He lives in an apartment." Blah, blah, blah. "Have you been there?" "Yeah, I visited my uncle," and things like that. Well, at the end of this entire investigation, the father was arrested, sat in county jail, couldn't make bail, didn't have the money, lost their home. Mother believed the daughter. And what happens was the daughter was having a sexual relationship with the paternal uncle. And she blamed it on the father because she was scared of consequences of becoming pregnant. Well, this guy finally, from county, was deported, lost his family, lost his home, lost his job, and it was totally false. And so when you go into every situation, it's very important to understand that people, for different reasons, for anger, resentment, getting back at people for maybe they thought they were mistreated or something, will make false reports. And it's really sad that a lot of people go in wide open believing everything that a potential victim states. And that's where good detective work comes in. You must do your work. You can't just accept everything at face value. You got to have evidence to back up evidence. You have to have any type of allegation. And usually these things fall apart because the evidence does not back it up. There's recanting of the so-called stories that took place, the situations that took place. So there's a lot of problems with false allegations regarding any type of victimization. And this happens a lot. And so it happens a lot with teenagers and things like that, and people that get involved in situations where they say, well, they're raped, and they weren't raped. They probably were having a sexual encounter with their boyfriend. The parents didn't know that, and so they blame it on that, okay? So when we look at false reports or an act of revenge by an alleged victim, another factor might be they need attention. They want attention. They feel lonely. They feel death, whatever, okay? Some mental depression that may be going through. Might be for profit, for material gain. Some will say, it's very easy to say, well, we've seen a lot of court cases where a person will come up years after and say, well, this took place. Well, okay, well, how are you going to prove it? It's just the word of the victim against the word of the suspect, okay? And usually, because the victim is crying and carrying on, well, the juries believe that, and sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes innocent people go to jail over false reports. How many times have we seen different situations where people were coerced into making false reports because maybe, this person might have had a record or what have you, but the police just singled out this one person and wanted to hang this one person, so they concocted a lot of different information and things, and you got to have good detective work to understand that is not reliable information. And most alleged allegations of false reports will name and even provide details of a subject accusing a stranger, a red flag, many investigators of a pseudo complaint. overwhelming force was used, and they have no injuries. I remember one time I went to a school, several times I went to a school, and a young boy said that his father beat him with whips and straps and everything else. So I had the nurse summon the young boy to the school. The school nurse summoned the young boy to her office. And so I had her lift the kid's shirt, no marks or bruises. Drop his pants, not his underpants, just his top pants, no marks or bruises. Okay? And then talking to the parents said they've had an ongoing battle with the kid, that he wanted to play Nintendo at different hours of the night, and they said no, and they took away the game, and the kid was mad, so he made up false complaints. If I would not have done my job, just based on the complaints and the lack of evidence for that child, could have been havoc for the family, for the parents, for the child going to foster care. Foster care is a very abusive system as well, and the child could have been abused in foster care and things like that. So it's very important to look at that. Not everything appears as it looks, and a good investigator looking at forensic victimology will look at all the facts, things that are there, things that are not there, relationships, etc., and then present their case. Again, 70% were true, 30% were unsubstantiated. Of that 70%, maybe was not true the way they were saying it was true, but yet there was some maybe domestic violence or excessive force or something like that. So again, you need to really, really know what you're doing as a forensic investigator. Okay. Because most victims, of details can't remember. If there's real trauma, okay, they can't remember a lot of different details, okay? And if they are very precise in their details, well, in some sense, that should be a red flag also, okay? Again, I'm not blaming victims, but I'm saying there are false reports. And we need to understand that. When we understand forensic victimology, we must understand that there's a lot of reasons why people will make false reports, okay? And that must be taken into consideration. So in conclusion, not just as a psychologist, but a Christian minister, I understand that many of the factors we have examined regarding victimology and violent crimes have a tremendous impact on people's lives, not only in a temporal, but also in long term. We must understand the impact of collective trauma in people's lives and how it builds a different psychosocial construction of their reality and lifetime experiences. Okay. However, I must also indicate if a person truly repents and turns to their back on this type of behavior and seeks help, they can be helped. Okay. But they must be true repentance. And true repentance means change of mind. Okay, change of heart, you accept what you've done, and change of behavior. Now, a lot of people have done very stupid things. It was a one-time thing. Nothing came of it. They repented, and nothing is carried on in their lives. It was just a one-time event that took place, and they learned from it and moved on. Okay, but not making light of it, but at the same time understand that, most offenders have a lifestyle of crime, criminal acts, a lot of alcoholism, a lot of self-medication, a lot of violence in their record and things like that. So these are the type of people that are looking for easy prey. Are you an easy prey? You need to understand the things that you throw out in your garbage, the way you drive, where you go. Are you leaving a trail for someone to follow you and find you at a very vulnerable time and take advantage of you? Are you going out late at night? Are you going to bars, drinking and carrying on, and you're not even aware of your situations, and you end up being mugged or beaten or raped or something? So there's a lot of things we need to take into consideration when we study victimology. And the reason why I mention these things is we all must use common sense. Okay? We all must use common sense. So again, as what I see as common sense and the recommendations I gave, a lot of people don't believe that. A lot of people say, well, I like to go to bars and I like to drink, or I like to go out late at night and walk my dog, or I want to go to the market at 2 in the morning, the mini market, or I want to get cash there or whatever. A lot of excuses. Well, a lot of those things turn out very tragic. So again, if you have questions, go to the website, or you can use our email address of Harvest Evangelistic Association at AOL.com. Or you could go to the website, and we have a contact sheet there, and you can contact us, and we can help you if you need counseling or direction, whatever. Be more than willing to help you. But be safe out there. Use common sense. If you've been a victim of crime, seek psychological help. If something was ongoing or something happened one time and it really never changed your life, well, great, thank God. But if you've been a victim of ongoing assaults and things like that, which I've had cases like that, where victims were raped by several different people throughout their lifetime, well, you got to look at what's going on. How does a person fall into that type of situation? What are they doing also that might contribute to becoming a victim? Lifestyles, what was going on. So if you like this or don't like it, please subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment. If you need to talk, we'll be more than happy to talk. But we pray that God blesses you and keeps you safe, and you use common sense. This is Dr. Timothy Emmerich again with Harvest Evangelistic Association, once again bringing you this study that you might grow in wisdom. God bless you.